All right, everybody. Let's. I appreciate all the friendly chatter that's going on, but let's focus up here and get started on our notes. Welcome, welcome. I'm glad to see you all. I hope you're all doing well. Welcome to another microeconomics class. Today we're going to be talking about those extreme, or not the extreme. Sorry. We're going to be talking about those things in the middle of the extremes, right? We had that line where we talked about how we have pure, perfect competition over here, and we have monopoly over here. So we covered monopoly in chapter 9, we covered pure competition in chapter 8. In chapter 10, we're going to be covering monopolistic competition and oligopoly. And both of these in the middle here are termed to be imperfectly competitive market structures, which means that they fall between the extremes. Monopoly and perfectly competitive, right? And so when we talk about monopolistic competitive, this is when we have many firms and they are selling both identical or differentiated products. So that's our definition for monopolistic competition. Many firms with identical or differentiated products compared to our oligopoly, where we have few large firms that have most or all of the sales in that industry. An oligopoly as well can have identical or differentiated products.
Did you already say this is where most businesses are?
I did not, but that's a very good point. So this is where, in this range of imperfectly competitive, is where most businesses are, right? So pure competition or perfect competition is an extreme, right? We like to think of corn and wheat and other things like that in that category, right? Because, when you're going and buying corn, you don't care what farm that corn is coming from. You just want, the corn is corn, right? I mean, I know that there are different grades of corn for feeding animals and stuff like that, right? But human grade corn is human grade corn is human grade corn, right? So, but a lot of things that we buy, right, aren't like that, right? A lot of things are, when we buy cereal, right? That's in the monopolistic competitive situation, right? Where they're trying to differentiate you by, celebrity endorsements, or this one has a toucan associated to it, or, this one you'll be able to snowboard afterwards or whatever, right? They do that with like Mountain Dew and everything like that too, right? So different sodas, but sodas we would actually classify more in the oligopoly category, right? Because really there's two main players in the soda market, right? There's Coke and there's Pepsi. Now, if we start to expand our scope, we start to kind of zoom out a little bit, and instead of just looking at sodas, if we start to look at like non-water drinks, then it starts to look more like a monopolistic competitive situation because there's no longer dominant players that have the lion's share, the majority of the sales. Does that make sense? So the more specific we get in terms of industries and categories, the not easier, but the more likely it is that it's going to be like in an oligopoly. And then the more general we get, the more likely that industry or that market structure is likely to be monopolistic competition. Now, one of the really interesting things is that things that we think are monopolistically competitive sometimes end up actually being oligopolistic. Case in point, shampoo and conditioner and soaps. Herbal essences and Dove and, Pantene Pro V, and right, there's all these different brands of shampoos and soaps and conditioners, right? Next time you guys go to Walmart, I want you to flip the bottle around and look near the barcode, because almost every single one of those is created and manufactured and distributed and marketed by one of two companies, Unilever or Procter and Gamble. So despite the fact that there's all these brands, when you really take a look behind the veil, there's actually an oligopoly happening rather than monopolistic competition. Monopolistic competition, and again, I mean, similar kind of things happen in the snack aisle, right? The Dorito chips and everything, it's Frito-Lay, right? Has produces and markets a lot of those. So there's a lot of stuff where you have to look a bit deeper than just the brand name and actually see who's producing the good to figure out the market structure of that particular good or service. So I've been throwing around this word differentiated product a lot. What does this mean, right? What is a differentiated product? So a differentiated product is a product that consumers perceive as distinct in some way, right? So what are some of the ways that this is done? How do this? Use good grammar today, right? So the first way is physical aspects. This skateboard might have a brake on it, for instance, right? Or this skateboard, looks like, or it's got curves in it to, it's a land yacht, right? So it's like got curves in it so that you can have your feet, I don't know, hug the board more, or whatever the case may be, right? It could have to do with the location from where it sells. So, you're not just buying shoes, but you're buying shoes that were created sustainably in an American factory, right? New Balance has it's the last remaining producer of U.S.-made shoes, and you can buy the exact same shoe that's made in Indonesia or Malaysia or somewhere for like $80, or you can buy that exact same shoe made in the United States for $140. And people will and do buy the shoe that's made in the United States for $140, right? So the location from where it sells, even if the product is exactly identical, has an impact on people's consumption decision. Does that make sense, everyone? There could be some intangible aspects. I'm blanking on a good example of this right now. I'll have to get back to you guys. That's a good I cannot think of a great example. But the last one, which is what I want to put a lot of the intangible stuff in, is perceptions. This is one of the biggest ones, right? This is part of the reason why, celebrity, Michael Jordan has Michael Jordan Nike shoes. This is, celebrity endorsements for, colognes and perfumes, or new crypto platforms, or new sports betting platforms, or whatever the case may be, right? That's all the same shit, but they're trying to get you to perceive it as different through a reputation effect, or through an association with somebody that you perceive to be trustworthy, or somebody that you would like or a lifestyle that you would like to emulate, right? The other big part about how this is being done, and this is more of a recent thing, is the economic, or not economic necessarily, but the environmental or the labor impact of it, right? So I talked about the shoes being produced in Malaysia compared to the United States. But, if you go back to like Tom's shoes, right? They were one of the first brands to do this. If you buy a pair of shoes from us, we're going to donate a pair of shoes to some kids in a third world country, or developing country. I'm not supposed to say third world. In a developing or emerging country, right? And that has become more of a business model now, right? You buy these socks, and we give socks to people, in homeless shelters or something like that, right? Also, you buy this book, and we plant a tree. So again, there's all sorts of different ways. I guess that would be an intangible aspect, right? You buy something from us, and we do something else for you. I will double check in terms of what the heck this is actually saying, and we will get back to that on Monday, first thing in class. But the other ways should be pretty clear, right? So once again, when we talk about these different kinds of market structures, we're really talking about the perceived demand. And we talked about how in perfectly competitive land, the perceived demand is a flat line. And we talked about how in monopoly land, the perceived demand is this downward sloping curve. And so imperfect competition, specifically the imperfect competition of monopolistic competitive, not necessarily oligopoly, we'll discuss that towards the end of class, is going to have a curve that's somewhere in the middle of these two. I'm going to need you guys to either leave or stop talking. It's very distracting to probably me and other people. Thank you so much. All right. So this is going to be a mixture, right? Probably not that much, but something like that. So this is our monopolistic competitive firm or industry, or whatever the case may be. This is the demand curve that they are facing. So it's not steeped as much as the monopoly. It's not completely flat. It's somewhere in the middle. So I'm sure you're all wondering, well, what does this mean for our profit maximization rule? Right? Our Q star, where the marginal revenue is equal to the marginal cost. Are we still applying that in this monopolistic competitive industry? And the answer is, you betcha we are. So we'll pick that up at the start of the next video.